So let's talk about the state of third wave coffee shops in 2026.
What?
What's going on?
I would venture to say that we as in third wave coffee shops, sell more matcha lattes than espresso or pour over. You think that's fair?
What?
I would say that, well, I know for a fact that lattes are, as we've heard it said, the economic backbone of our coffee shops, specifically flavored lattes, right?
Right.
Agreed.
We're on the unending pursuit of trying to infect our baristas with passion for coffee, but at the end of the day, they're probably more excited about the newest seasonal syrup than they are about our new single origin experimental processed coffee. Fair?
Seasonal drinks, but your point remains.
And here's the dagger. At the end of the day, we are just a locally owned, elevated version of Starbucks.
Ross.
Hot takes
Yeah, I agree.
left and right, bro.
So let's talk about how did we get here?
Well, we started our company at 19 years old
10 years ago, baby.
with talking about infectious.
Talking about infection.
If you want to talk about infection,
We loved specialty coffee. We loved making pour overs,
yes.
and we hated lattes, right?
Yep. And this was in 2016.
Yeah. So I think maybe our expectation was that if we looked at ourselves in 10 years, whenever we had what we have now, 2 cafes, roastery, wholesale program, etc., that we would be pushing black coffee in like a purist mindset. But then once you really get into the coffee industry, you see that number one, that's just not what the people coming in and out of the door probably want.
Why does that matter?
And I'm not saying, obviously, this is, I think, geographically dependent. So it's like, you know, if someone from Europe watches the Instagram reel cut of me saying this, they're going to be like, one of Europeans love to comment dumb Americans on our podcast reels. Have you guys ever seen that?
No, but
No,
that's awesome.
Well, they have traditionally. So they would be like, America, like lattes, it's not even coffee at that point. And I'm like, okay, touche. Like, you know, your opinion. It's great. And so it's like even, you know, one city to the next, like the drinks and the share might be different.
Sure.
But for us, in our situation where we live, where we're opening coffee shops, we will never sell more espresso than we do lattes.
Or pour overs.
But that's not something that we thought about whenever we were starting.
Well, yeah. I mean, we thought about it in the sense that in 2016, I remember our mission statement was changing the way people perceive specialty coffee in North Georgia. And what we meant by that was we're trying to get old heads to try fruity coffee because if they just tried it, they'd like it.
To be fair, to be the devil's advocate, I think we also meant there aren't any specialty coffee shops in Metro Atlanta.
But the only way we're going to put a specialty coffee shop in Metro Atlanta in the suburbs is by
Turning people.
Turning people from lattes to pour overs.
Yeah.
Do you ever have those moments when you're like trying to share like a win or a testimony about specialty coffee and you're like, this guest used to come in and order large caramel lattes.
Right.
And then they stopped adding syrup. And then they got a 12 ounce. And then they got a cappuccino. And then they got espresso. And that's when I knew we were doing good work.
Right.
And
There's beauty to that. There is beauty to that. But gosh, I'm so excited to talk about this topic because I think it's so relevant. Let me just lay this out for you guys, okay? Second wave coffee shops. What comes to mind? Do we still have second wave coffee shops? I'm sure we had a lot more back when we were starting.
I would say, you know, syrups with pumps on them. And not just that, not saying that's objectively bad, but, and then there's like 60 syrups.
There's tons of syrup options.
It's like no one even knows what all the syrup options are.
Okay. What else?
you have espresso roast coffee.
Okay. So that means that the people think that you can only brew that coffee on espresso.
Right. Or those are espresso beans.
Espresso beans. Okay, what else?
I mean, dirty couches.
Dirty couches.
Hey.
If any of you out there watch Oren Meets World on YouTube, you'll see that he thinks that's going to come back around.
Couches. I mean, really, really dark coffee.
Yep. No latte art.
No latte art.
Little to no latte art.
A lot more like frothy milk than microfoamy.
16-ounce cappuccino.
16-ounce cappuccino. I mean, we can kind of stop there. But it was in the cradle of second wave coffee shops that inspiration was sparked for us to be like, let's open a better coffee shop. And that is what so many people, that's the same exact experience that so many people have had. Maybe they're in their hometown or the place where they live, and they don't have any good coffee shops, right? Because they're all these like second wave coffee shops.
Dude, our first Valor event was making pour-overs at our church, and we did not bring cream or sugar.
Yeah.
How cringe is that? You're just like, oh,
It's very cringe.
I did that.
It's very cringe.
It's cringe when you really boil it down to those moments where you're giving someone the drink and they're like, "Can I put some cream in this?" And you're like, "We actually think the coffee's like better if you don't."
Right.
So you don't have that option.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So
we think.
So in that time in 2016, like I could try to wax eloquent about pre-2016 coffee culture. I'm just not going to. Like that was when we kind of came of age. I can tell you that like after 2000-ish is when like specialty coffee shops, third wave shops became more prevalent in major cities.
Sure.
And so in 2016, 19, 18-year-old us would go to New York City, go to Atlanta, go to Charlotte, whatever local cities are around here. And we would have this elevated coffee experience. Now, we kind of hinted at it, but how would you describe those experiences early on for us?
Cold.
What do you mean?
Like I can't tell you about a lot of I traveled to and or was it far and wide? I traveled far and wide for cool coffee shops.
Good cuppa.
A good cuppa. But sometimes those experiences were ice cold from a hospitality standpoint.
The coffee was hot. The service was ice cold.
Because there was just this like, we're elevating the product and we're going to focus on that. And we can't focus on you.
Can I add something to that?
Go ahead.
The only effort that baristas would put forth besides making good coffee was education.
Sure.
The only way that a barista would like have their face light up and like enjoy talking to a guest if they felt like they were enlightening and educating the guest about specialty coffee.
I mean, either that or I shouldn't say that term on this podcast, and I won't. It was a competition
Sure.
of like who knew more, you know?
Yeah.
Sure.
Right. And okay, so what are some other ways you would describe 2016 us going to third wave shops that were very different than like our hometown second wave shops? Positive and negative. I mean, you'd see latte art.
They were really cool.
Better interior design,
Yeah.
clean aesthetic.
Cool, good looking people.
Yeah.
Ethan.
What?
Early adopters, right?
Yeah, totally.
Lighter roasted coffee.
Felt it's it's like the feeling of luxury, the feeling of being cutting edge, you know?
Yeah.
And that's a part of just like business, like exclusivity. You're like, I know something that other people don't. I've found something that other people haven't found.
Oh man, this may be a rabbit trail, guys. This feels like an Oren topic, but like, is third wave coffee luxury yet? Meaning, early days of third wave coffee come along, and it just feels like this pretentious thing that most people don't understand. It's like, if you know, you know type thing. But when I think of luxury, I think of something that everyone wants but can't get because of money.
Yeah, I think that's, and Dom and I just recorded a video last week that maybe won't be out by the time this podcast is out, but it talking about just like a beginner's guide to specialty coffee. And I was saying that one of the things that excites me the most about third wave and specialty coffee is that it is an affordable luxury. It's like one of the most accessible luxuries that anyone could possibly have, which is indicative to low profit margins in our business because maybe we aren't charging what we should be.
Sure.
But whenever you compare it to fine dining or even, wine, like expensive
Clothing,
tequilas and
whatever.
liquor and clothing, cars, it's like, a luxury top of the line, like the most top of the line luxury car is $500,000 for like a Rolls Royce and then like up. But like you can drink a Gesha for $12 at a coffee shop.
Sure. Which is like the top of the line.
Yeah.
So I'm going somewhere with this. So we talked about what it's like for a second wave shop. We talked about third wave shops. Those two stimuli of second wave and third wave shops were what inspired us to start a third wave shop, start Valor, right? Were you about to go somewhere?
I was just going to say, quick caveat for those who might comment this. I understand that there are $2,000 per pound coffees.
Sure.
But like if we're talking about how most of the things are here and that $2,000 coffee is way over here. Whereas in other luxuries, it's a more like steady increase.
Well, yeah, there's like top 1% of coffees and then there's top 0.01% of coffees.
Yeah, exactly.
And good luck finding a coffee of that price at your local cafe,
yeah, exactly.
no matter what city you live in.
Like it's just going to be in Dubai.
Yeah. And that's fine.
Those were like the breeding grounds that made us want to start a cafe because we were like, we don't want to be like that. We don't want to be like that. We do want to be like that. We're like picking and choosing and forming our own vision, right? And so
that's the cool thing about starting a business, right?
Yeah.
That you can do that.
Absolutely. You make your own thing. And so we open our first coffee shop, right? And we're like, let's just describe our coffee shop. It just at a high level in the same way that we described these two experiences.
Like if we're just looking at the Alpharetta Cafe.
An outsider observing our brand, right? Let's start with syrups just because it's relevant. Like we had 3 syrup options in the beginning: lavender, vanilla, caramel, cardamom, and mocha. And we started throwing in a seasonal somewhere along the way. But they're like house made and they're good, but they're just kind of elevated versions of the classics.
Yeah.
Okay. We have the same machine as a third wave shop. We have the same grinders as a third wave shop. Interior design is more or less the same as a third wave shop, except for we went more colorful just because we wanted to be a little bit less. We wanted the interior design to be in line with the hospitality we were trying to give, which is more colorful and kind
and also no texture because we didn't have any money.
And no texture like tile or whatever. We would have, but we couldn't. And then, we still have like light roast specialty coffee, right? We're roasting it ourselves at that point. Our espresso blend is free throw, or was and still is. And it was like mostly chocolatey with some fruity acidity. Probably pretty similar to the third wave shops we used to go to.
Sure.
I don't know.
Even modeled after.
Yeah. Some of those shops would have like a single origin Central South American coffee that had more acidity to it. But so we wanted to like go a little bit more approachable, I guess. Latte art for sure. Or like we tried to, if we're being realistic. Like when we were on bar, it would be latte art. Our employees were like learning latte art.
Because our choice to deviate from third wave culture was let's not hire anybody with coffee experience
Because
they're not nice and we're mad at them.
Most of them weren't nice, and we were just like, coffee is easy, we'll teach you that. Being nice is, you can't train that. There's some good to that, some we've learned from.
Yeah, and this is all an honest review. Obviously there's plot holes here.
Of course.
I'm sorry to take us here. What do you guys think whenever you see a coffee company post that they are hiring and barista experience is required?
I think in a duality of like respect, I get that. And then also like, I wonder what you value in terms of the like nice hospitality side of things.
Because it seems like end of day, you're just trying to save money on training.
Yeah.
Or
And-
like maybe you're setting a standard for your quality.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe have you don't want to deal with that ramp up, and maybe it's a smaller or slightly slower place, and you can only have 1 or 2 people at a time, so you need someone jumping in and being able to hold it all down.
Sure.
Where I'm going with this in describing these different second, third wave shop, our shop, is somewhere along the way, maybe we hit year 1 in the shop. Did you guys ever feel like we were just a better version of Starbucks? And within that thought is when we were trying to figure out, are we going to open a shop in the suburbs or not? I remember thinking pretty often, if we're going to be a third wave specialty coffee shop, we can't open in the suburbs because the people that live there don't like specialty coffee. They like dark roast coffee because they like Starbucks. People in the city where all the hipsters and early adopters are, those are the ones that like light roast coffee and specialty and appreciate the kind of music that we want to play. And I just had them in like these 2 separate buckets.
Mm-hmm.
And provision and fate and destiny took us towards the suburbs. We opened a pop-up, and it's like as suburban as it gets, right? It's like in the heart of the suburbs of Atlanta.
Yeah.
And that was the very place where I was afraid to open or concerned to open because I just thought they wouldn't get it. They would think the espresso's too acidic.
Maybe we'll eventually make a podcast called How We Have Sold Out Over the Years.
Oh, that's a good one.
But I think I think one of the first ways that we sold out was that we opened our pop-up. We only had max 12-ounce drink.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then quickly we were like, this is stupid. Let's do 16-ounce drinks.
I remember there might have been a little bit more of a fight.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That like principle, like we can't.
Yep.
Ooh, this would be fun, guys. Can we think of any other unwritten, unspoken rules of that era of third wave coffee shops? Like you just mentioned, 12 ounce is the biggest drink, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't go so far as to say no syrups, but there were definitely some shops in Atlanta that
Or like
only,
one syrup.
only had honey or vanilla.
I would say there was a preconceived notion that drip was bad,
Oh yeah.
and like you got to
Batch brew.
batch brew, and you got to get a pour over if you want a good filter.
And auto pour overs were not around at the time whatsoever. I saw a pour steady in Nashville at Sump kind
And
of around that time.
Counterculture in Atlanta had SP9s, remember?
Marco SP9s, yeah. Okay, so drip is bad. Like 1 or 2 syrups.
If you think any more, comment below what the older preconceived notions of specialty coffee were.
Yeah, right. And I mean, like, of course, like no dark roast, because specialty roasters at that time, just like, I guess depending on the roaster, of course.
Yeah.
But the people who were like leading, the roasters who were like leading in third wave, I feel like just didn't have dark roasts.
Maybe. Also, like, no espresso into paper cups. So I feel like it was like a hot topic
Just
for a long
paper
time.
cups in general.
Paper
right?
cups. Yeah.
Right. So you kind of have these unspoken rules. And we started to realize, like, okay, are we going to break these rules to better serve people in the suburbs? But is that going to take away from what we're trying to do here? And the more we like compromised, I just began to feel like from the average Alpharetta regular's perspective in 2020 or 2021, are we just a locally owned, elevated, nicer version of Starbucks?
I think yes.
Like, yes.
And still yes today, right?
And still yes today. And so,
Because how many conversations with a 40 to 60-year-old have you had of like, you guys, it's going to be the next Starbucks?
right.
Like there's a reason that verbiage
They don't
comes
know
up
about
over and over and over again.
second, third wave.
And they never will, and they'll never care.
Yeah.
And then to bookend it, it's like, will the younger generation,
Oh.
Right. And then you cut to,
Ethan,
since you're the youngest,
What?
cut to Starbucks starts modeling their coffee shops off of third wave shops. Yeah. Like the new Starbucks build outs, they don't look like the Starbucks of old, exposed brick, cozy leather chair anymore.
No couches.
They look like Blue Bottle. They look like high-end specialty shops, right? So they're like second wave is coming towards third wave because third wave is elevating second wave in some ways.
In aesthetic.
And then if you want to take it the other way, Starbucks starts cold foam. And then third wave takes that and says, we're going to do a third wave version of cold foam and do like, flavored
cream.
Yeah, better products.
Chocolate shell.
Do you guys remember our staff pushback when we were like, we're doing cold foam?
It seemed like sacrilege at first.
And I think that's just like the thesis of getting too caught in the status quo of specialty. To not take a step back and realize like, guys, this doesn't really matter. It's just the same thing done a little bit differently.
And what I think about is like the fine dining establishments, or not even fine dining, but just like great restaurants. What they do is they play on the classics. Like they're not principally opposed to having a, chocolate sheet cake or like a hamburger or like
Blondie,
a waffle or like whatever it is.
Ooh,
it's
I'm
just
hungry.
like they're going to take that cultural phenomenon of whatever, like just take cold foam, for example, and they're going to do it with a local cream. They're going to do it with butterfly pea flour, where it turns it.
Ew, pea. Gross.
That's what it is, right? PEA? Butterfly pea flour? Yeah. They're going to turn it blue. They're going to do freaking chamomile infused.
We're going to throw a chocolate shell on it that we're going to make.
Right. And so then it's just interesting to me to compare what third wave shops have become, which is like from the guest perspective, a better version of Starbucks. Compare that reality in 2026 to when we started almost 10 years ago, of like there were all these unspoken rules about what a third wave shop is supposed to be and not be. And I just think that's interesting. And then what happened is you have people that don't have coffee experience starting coffee shops because they think it'd be fun and they like coffee and they like their city and they see coffee as a cool place to have community and impact their city, and you can have their friends over, whatever the reasons why people want to start coffee shops. And they say, okay, what is this coffee shop going to be like? Am I going to be like Starbucks? Not really. Like Starbucks kind of has a bad rap, and then, maybe their coffee's a little burnt or something. Or am I going to be like, I'm going to be like this one place that I went to when I was in Australia. I'm going to be like this one place I went to when I was in London, or like the local city, Atlanta. They got some cool shops there. I want them to do the pretty flowers on the drinks. Like I want to have like house-made syrups. But it's like they don't have experience.
Right.
And so then they open, and then they're trying to figure out like what roaster they're going to use, right? Just take us, for example. If they're using Valor, a person like that, I'm going to just try to get them to use workers' comp or free throw, which are like our medium roast, still good acidity, great price point coffees that are like all purpose and approachable. They're going to put it on espresso and make their lattes. They're all going to be flavored, and they're going to sell a lot of matcha. And it's like they're a third wave shop, but in name only. Not in the way that third wave has been previously conceptualized for the last 10 years.
With this like deep love of the coffee and the story of the coffee.
And they hire baristas, and most of them are under 25. Most of them don't care about the same things that third wave baristas did when we first started, which is like, I was trying to get this old dude to drink this pour over. That's not even on their mind. They're just like doing cold foam now. But like second wave is it that third wave has stooped down, or is it that second wave has crept up?
Well, I mean, if you just, I think one of the big reflections over the last 10 years is that I think less people, there's a big group of people, but less people jumped on the high end coffee train than what is required for there to be so many true third wave shops like that. You know what I mean?
Especially like outside of like large cities.
Say more about that. What do you mean?
So I was with the large city thing too. You know, you're like, oh, I'm scared that if we go in the suburbs, no one's gonna be into like this third wave, like very coffee specific, like origin, process, variety specific type of coffee drinking. And the reality is there's just more people in a city in a concentrated area. So there's just going to be more people of a smaller subset in a city.
Well, it's the exact same reason that there's not a Michelin star restaurant in Dawsonville, Georgia.
Right.
And there are multiple Michelin star restaurants in Atlanta, Georgia.
And there'd be plenty of people that would want to go in Dawsonville, but maybe just clearly not as many that live in a multi-million person city.
Yeah.
I would say that there's a growing delineation of people that when they want the origin, variety, process specific coffee, I would say they're more likely to buy that coffee online or even buy it from a shop and do it themselves at home with the gear that they've invested in so that they can give it the time and energy and resource that they think it deserves versus entrusting that with a coffee shop that's probably got maybe a line out the door and they're serving up lattes with cold foam and, heating up pastries and all this.
And they pull their V60, dusty V60 off the shelf whenever you order it, and brew it for the first time that day.
Yeah, because I still think there's a good number of people that are interested in that, like high specialty coffee. But I think there's just way, 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 way more people that are interested in just going to a local coffee shop for a better than Starbucks experience.
Yeah. And to that point, it's like have third wave and second wave come closer together. And then to the point of many, like fourth wave of coffee being people brewing at home.
Right.
And it's like how the Decent is a home espresso machine, but it's like if you walk into a place and it has a Decent, you're like flex.
That's sick.
And so at that point, is it like second and third wave are now here, and then fourth wave is its own thing over here where people are caring more about the insane intentionality behind something.
Yeah. I mean, if you just look at our coffees on our menu in our roastery, and you look at the split of which coffees we sell more of versus other ones. Free Throw is our flagship blend. And of course, you're always going to sell the most of your flagship blend. But I think it also tells a story of consumer need and want. And Free Throw is the vast majority of the coffee we sell, in part because of wholesale, which are coffee shops that are selling that coffee in their communities, most of them in the suburbs by percentage. And that means that they are mostly selling espresso or drip, but definitely espresso.
Yeah.
And I think that begs the question, really everything we're talking about begs the question, like, are we okay with this?
Yeah, nothing's been like a statement of this is good or this is bad. It's just like, this is what's going on.
This is how things are. What do we think? Because this is very different than how we started in third wave.
Well, yeah. I mean, to answer the question of are we okay with this, I would start with what has been our kind of like internal brand messaging that we've been workshopping lately for our more global reach of our coffees. And something we've kind of thrown around a lot is like a coffee for anyone, or like you can go like deeper, but you don't have to. And I really think that that's what excites me. It's like turbo diesel to a dark roast drinker is good. And it is still ethically sourced, like great, not commodity coffee.
Yeah.
And then we have insane process, like crazy expensive coffees that are great for people who like that end of the spectrum as well. So, and I think, maybe that is like, to some people's point, it's like, okay, so we're not niching down to a specific person and that's like a bad business practice. But I'm kind of thinking more along the lines of like, we offer a platform for discovery for people from dark or medium or whatever they want to drink into something that is there if they want to go get it, but they don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, so that's talking coffee, and then just even think about. I feel like it's just the exact same conversation, but with coffee drinks in a cafe. It's like, is it a bad thing that the latte makes up 41% of our like items sold last year? I
Are you
don't.
talking about from a financial perspective or from like a principle perspective?
Probably an industry direction perspective. That's kind of more where we're
Yeah, I mean,
at.
industry.
Sure.
It makes me think of our journey with Unblended in the last year.
Who's unblended?
Unblended is a coffee exporter in Colombia.
Yeah.
And their whole mission is to make coffee farming an exciting career path for young people, because less and less young people are getting into coffee farming for a whole bunch of reasons. And one of the ways that they do that, or maybe like the main way they do that, is by focusing on experimental processes for coffees.
Yeah.
Like co-ferments, cool varieties of coffee, higher end coffees. And we have just wanted to get behind that mission. We love that. We love them. They're incredible people. But there's one problem. We don't sell very much of those type of coffees. And I would say the vast majority of third wave roasters are exactly the same.
Sure. Yeah.
There are some roasters that specialize in crazy coffees, but I bet even they still sell a lot more of their lowest common denominator coffee flavored coffee. Is that a hot take, or I feel like it's not a hot take?
I don't think it's a hot take. And then, from an industry perspective, we're saying we see how beneficial it can be when people buy into high-end coffee, And so a question we're asking is, how do we get more people excited about that? And is that our business? Is that our prerogative?
But if you just look at, like, if we think about second, third, and fourth wave, if we want to talk about that, just in the context of coffee shop culture, not in the context of the whole industry, just coffee shops.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the reasons that we would want people to buy high-end coffees is because it contributes to a more sustainable future for coffee producers. That's kind of the whole reason Unblended exists, yeah?
100%.
So then I think about the conversations that we have had with our producer partners of like, is it okay to name coffees?
Oh.
Okay. I'm gonna go there. And I'm gonna drop this because by the time this podcast is out, you will notice a shift on our web platforms that all of our single origin coffees have a name. And this is legitimately a decision based around largely guest or customer understanding and the marketability of a specific coffee. And so then you have to ask the question, what is better for the producer? For me to name this coffee something that is going to make it sell way more so that I can buy more of their coffee, or for me to name the coffee the name of their farm, which is in essence a much less marketable name.
Just different language.
Yeah. And so, yes, we still talk about the producer on the label. We still talk about it on the product page. We still tell our baristas about the producer and all these things, the relationship that Ethan's had, how he went to the farm. It's amazing. It's like still an amazing part of the story. But what is better for the producer? To not sell a lot of product and only be able to buy this much, or to sell a lot of their product and be able to buy this much?
Yeah, something that's really fun about that is that not only are we interested in doing that, but coffee producers are doing that at their level already.
Yeah.
Because they're seeing their coffees as marketable products themselves. And I'm sure, exporters and importers are helping along the way. But there's times that we've brought on coffees, like we bought some coffees through Gold Mountain Coffee Growers. It's a Nicaragua specific exporter. And they were selling coffees from direct, like single producers, and they were naming their coffees like Nicaragua Plum Sauce, Pear Micro Lot. And that was like what we were being offered to buy. And I was like, let's just keep the name that they picked for this coffee, because we could call it like Maria and Sabino Jesus, Nicaragua, Jinotega, it's like, yeah, that is a route. But that coffee moved so fast. It always helps when the coffee's good. You know, that's goal number one. But like staff excitement, and then also just like the second, third wave over here, fourth wave over here. I think it's just such a bridge to be like approachability, you know? It's like, oh, plum sauce. That sounds good.
Dude, to wrap all that up, I think that a lot of this is rooted in the wrong place, which is some of this third wave mentality has been that like the roaster is doing something charitable for the producer. And that is just, excuse my language, bullshit. And I say that because it's just a business from end to end.
Yeah.
Like they are running a business. We are running a business. And so to think that they wouldn't understand marketing is just completely ignorant and wrong.
Yeah.
So like to your point, like producers are excited about marketing their product and selling more of their product so that they can support their families.
But I think just to bring it back to the topic at hand, in 2016, when we started, it would be very sacrilege to do what we're doing.
Sure.
Naming coffees.
Yeah.
But you can name blends. You know what I mean?
Which,
and we're not, by all means, we're not creating this concept. Like there are plenty of other roosters out there doing this.
No. Yeah, it's just taking the same idea of naming your blends and applying it to your other coffees is all it is. And if we're actually drilling down a little bit deeper, it's just taking one of the tasting notes.
Sometimes, yeah.
Not every time. Like sometimes we'll do a fun name that's not flavor related. Yeah. But in the case of plum sauce, it's called that because plum is would be one of the tasting notes, right? So I'm so excited about naming coffees, bro, because it's just a further execution of our vision, which is like hospitality and excellent product. It's marrying those together. One does not have to come at the expense of the other. Like they are mutually beneficial to one another and are unto the same end.
I'm really excited to see what it does for like Origins to just have like a little bit of a less than understood idea, you know? Like I'm sure roasters can relate, but you know, coffees from Rwanda, Kenya,
or even Nicaragua. I mean, that's a perfect case study of
They're
this.
just not going to move from a marketing standpoint as much as Colombia or Ethiopia.
Yeah, and there's nothing to that other than just objective fact.
Yeah. And so I think like, you know, I think we want to call what's a coffee that's out right now, Kenya Gotcha Thani, oatmeal cookie or oatmeal raisin cookie.
Yeah.
Because it's so freaking good.
It's an incredible coffee.
It's so freaking good, but someone's like, Kenya Gakatani? What?
Yeah. And so, but yeah, again, the opposite perspective might be like they just want to name the coffees so that they can make more money. Yes, we're a business. We do want to make more money. You're right.
So you can cover up what you're putting in the coffee.
Or that.
And we're like, check the label.
Yeah. And so check the label. But then also, yes, we do want to make more money. And we also want to buy more coffee from the producers.
Oh, yeah.
And they want to sell more of their coffees. So.
And if you're buying our coffee and you're a wholesale partner, it's going to help you because like we wouldn't do it if it didn't.
Yeah.
Your success in your business is our exact personal vested interest as well. Because the more coffee you sell, the more successful you are, and the more coffee you're going to have to buy from us. So like we really are partners. And so I can understand hesitancy like with what we've laid out with having these names, but I can't guarantee because we haven't tried it yet, but it's gonna give your customers who likely know nothing about coffee compared to what you know, something to grab onto and relate to that's accessible, that they can like wrap their head around instead of Ethiopia Yabitu Koba number 3, which is an amazing coffee. And that name is so true to where that comes from. Mm-hmm. But like, what's more honoring to the place where that comes from, to just have the name and not sell a lot of it, or have a name that's fun and exciting and accessible for the person that actually buys it.
And the name comes from how freaking epic the coffee is, you know? So that's like one way, I think, to kind of do some bridge gapping of what do we want to do with all this information. I think a much smaller thing is integrating cooler coffees into seasonal menus. You know, I think for a long time, the seasonal menu was just kind of this, let's make a few different types of syrups and they're going to be lattes. But I think there's something to like, we've kind of been taking like a mocktail cocktail approach of taking, categories of drinks and turning them into coffee drinks. And then not only doing that, but using cool coffees along the way. So we're doing that with Swoon this spring.
Yeah.
We're putting it in a cappuccino with orange blossom, with pink peppercorn.
And we had spring cleaning.
Yeah, we had spring cleaning.
What was that? It was like kind of a sour.
Swoon again. Geez.
It was like a short shaken drink that was served in a coupe.
Yeah.
That had Swoon in it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just another example of like playing off the flavors from the coffee instead of just, when you think about your seasonal menu, just thinking of coffee as one of your like coffee flavored ingredients.
Yeah.
That just tastes like coffee.
Yeah. And then another thing too is maybe it's not even a seasonal drink, but just being okay putting coffees in things, like I think I was telling you guys doing like an iced latte, but with a co-ferment on espresso. It sounds a little sacrilegious to our 2016 brains. Well, we probably didn't know what a co-ferment was in 2016. That's also just another conversation for another day. But I feel like we always thought like, if you're going to drink nice coffee, don't let it touch anything, But I love putting like crazy yeast inoculated obligon in a cappuccino or iced iced cappuccino.
Even just iced cappuccino as a statement, bro. It's it's so cringe that there's any stigma around iced cappuccino whenever someone knows exactly what you're talking about.
That was one of those unwritten rules of 2016 third wave is no iced cappuccino. I remember
put less freaking. It's like, what do you want me to say? An iced latte with 4 ounces of milk?
Sure, like, iced latte.
Come on, man.
Right. For those who don't know, there's a somewhat of a old trend, but some people still hold on to it of like they refuse to make iced cappuccinos because like it's not a cappuccino or something. I don't even know the full mentality of it. But I remember having this thought early on, and I'll claim the thought as my own because but like it's a bad thought. It's a bad thought.
Oh, no, sorry.
But I'm sure it was I wonder if you guys have ever heard or had this thought at that time too of like, I bet the coffee farmers in Colombia, if they knew that their coffee was going in a 16-ounce latte with tons of syrup, they would be so pissed off. Like, I remember having that thought, and maybe that's just literally emotional immaturity as a 19-year-old, but I think it also gets
we're drinking instant coffee with like 60 grams of sugar on coffee farms.
Santi's farm, yeah.
At origin.
Yeah.
It's just funny how the mentality has changed, not only with me, but I think if you were just to walk into the average third wave coffee shop in 2026, the experience you would have versus 10 years prior walking into the average third wave coffee shop, that I think they're pretty worlds different.
Dude, I would walk out laughing if I experienced it again today.
Well, yeah, it's like, well, they have the La Marzocco Linea. And like if we time traveled, right?
Yeah.
From like 10 years ago, they have the Linea. They've got like, that grinder looks really cool. Wow. Grinders look like that now. But like they have, it's just, it would be all wrong.
Yeah.
I love it.
Trends.
Thanks for listening, guys. If you got any value out of this at all, it would help us out a lot if you subscribe to our channel.
Try one of our named coffees.
And hey, yeah, by the time we release this, is it gonna be, are we gonna name coffees?
Yeah.
Oh yeah? Okay, great. Well, yeah, go check them out and tell us if you hate it or if you love it.
Or if you want some more of it.
Say la.
Hate it, love it, want some more of it. Well, that was something.